because I was having like panic attacks. I think one day, the day before we were due to go on holiday, had a panic attack. We were coming to the session and we went to Northwick Park Hospital instead. So, because I was still having panic attacks over there, in front of like extended family members and stuff. So it wasn't really a great.
Yeah.
Basically couldn't walk from like, let's say my house to the end of the street without being out of breath.
Defeat is when you completely give up and you stop. Whereas a loss is something that you can learn from. Try something different, but keep trying. Because eventually you will get to success. It's only when you give up and you stop trying that you fail. Do you know what it is? What makes them different is that they have more followers. Welcome to the Stronger, Fitter, Happier podcast. I'm your host Vin, and today I am back after a long break. It's been summer holidays, which always means chaos in my house and very difficult to record any episodes. But we're going into a new direction on this podcast. So what we're going to be doing is having a lot more guests on, having a lot more interviews. And our first guest with our little break and being back is the wonderful Kalina Shah. So if you don't know who Kalina is, she is a Body+Beyond member, now a personal trainer, and just a wonderful human being who is on a journey to help other people and inspire others just basically go through some of the challenges she has. So she's on here and we're going to be talking about her journey and how she got into training, where she was when she first started and where she is now, and all the in-betweens and the obstacles she's overcome. So without any further ado, Kalina, would you like to add anything to that introduction? Just let people know who you are.
So I'm Kalina and I am a personal trainer, but also I have a day job that is, I work for a charity called Solace Women's Aid and I manage the refuges there now.
Wonderful. So if we could just rewind a little bit in terms of how long is it that you've been into fitness and training now?
So 6 years since I started with you guys. So 6 years in September.
And was that the first time getting into exercise and things like that?
I tried in uni. I think I went all of about 1 week and then we never went again. So yeah, the first actual time that I started was with you guys. And
where would you say you were? Because I remember you telling me afterwards, you know, like your experience of first joining Body+Beyond, how nervous you felt and stuff. But like, how did you feel in terms of like getting into training beforehand? Like, did you try for a while? Were you thinking about it for a long time? Like, what was it? Where was your headspace at?
So I wasn't actually thinking about it. Rahil was already with you guys and had been telling me a long time throughout my masters, oh, you need to start doing it, because I was like really overweight. But like the sessions were at 6 a.m. I was awake the whole night. So yeah, that wasn't going to work until I finished. And then he kind of, said, oh, you should do it. He actually scared me by like saying that you guys were doing like handstands and all sorts. I was like,
what the?
Yeah, no, that's what he said in front of like our family members as well. I was like, yeah, this is not I don't know how this is gonna go down. But luckily it wasn't that.
Yeah, well, he was lying to you, but yeah, well, he was lying to you, but
yeah, I know. I found out after the first week.
Yeah, what a wind-up merchant. trying to get someone into fitness, but scaring them before getting them into it. So, yeah. I mean, on your first session, how did it how did you feel the night before and getting into it and stuff?
I was like pretty nervous. And even whilst I was there before, I was like, okay, let's go back. But I think the first session, like you always feel quite nervous going into it. How, like, are you going to look stupid? Like, because you can't do the stuff. What are other people going to think? All the things that I think people, when they go into like a gym setting as well, kind of feel first time. And then I think I went back home that day to try and practice the burpee because I couldn't do it and pulled something. So that week I remember being like, I can't do this, I can't do that. Because I pulled something in my head.
Yeah, I mean, people looking at you now will be like, oh, like Kalina is someone who is, or if especially if they follow you, they're like, oh, someone's really into fitness, always training, loves working out, and is just like almost a fitness enthusiast. But when you rewind back to that start date, you were far from a fitness enthusiast, like someone who is a complete beginner to training. But like, where were you in terms of like, I know your main goal when you first joined us was weight loss, but where were you in that space of like, how did you feel about your body? How did you feel generally in terms of your fitness and things like that?
Pretty much hated it. And I think like I was going through anxiety at that time. So I remember missing a lot of sessions because I was having like panic attacks. I think one day, the day before we were due to go on holiday, had a panic attack. We were coming to the session and we went to Northwick Park Hospital instead. So that kind of played into it. So I think I wasn't really doing many sessions in the first month, or like maybe, and then we went on holiday for about a month and then came back. But I think, like I wasn't in a good space. The anxiety didn't help. But I'd like kept coming back. So.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that I was really like impressed by. It was your consistency and effort in terms of coming back to sessions. So what you did a lot in the start was at least once a week you'd cancel a session.
Yeah.
And I thought you were just not there, like in terms of like you were at home and Rahil's come on his own and you've cancelled a session. But I later found out, like maybe a month into it, that you were actually upstairs in the car park and you couldn't bring yourself to come downstairs into the session.
Yeah.
You like had like almost too much anxiety to come downstairs we were in a ground floor basement gym. So I had no idea that was going on. And when I found out, I was really shocked that you were still turning up for the rest of the week and still trying to attempt to come in. And it was something that really, one impressed me, but I was also very shocked by it. You didn't tell us, you knew you were quite quiet in sessions you were in. You didn't really speak to anyone. You just did your own thing. But aside from that, there was no clues.
Yeah.
Is this something you've been kind of battling with for a while, like your anxiety and stuff? Or
actually, the master's period actually triggered it. So when I did my dissertation, I had to transcribe a lot of interviews, and the timeline for the like to hand it in was quite short. I think that's when like I must have had low level anxiety before, but that's really what triggered it and went into like full panic attacks. You can't breathe, so then you start panicking that you can't breathe, and then it's just like a vicious cycle. So I think that's when everything kind of like kicked off. And then even once the master's dissertation was handed in, I think then it was like anxiety about, okay, I know I didn't do good enough. What am I even going to pass? And then we went on a holiday, which was like my family's attempt to kind of like reduce stress. And in hindsight, we shouldn't have gone in that period because I was still having panic attacks over there in front of like extended family members and stuff. So it wasn't really a great kind of go. And then like they thought you were depressed, and I was like, no, I'm not depressed. I'm just like very stressed.
And what basically, how do you feel now? Like, where are you now with that?
I haven't had a panic attack since that year. I still have anxiety and it still goes through its period, but I think now most of my symptoms are physical. So if my arms go numb, that's how I know that it's back. That's the first thing that I notice. Or I have like gastroenteritis. That's like one of the main symptoms, or nausea. But a lot of like physical symptoms, not the standard panic attacks anymore.
So what do you do to kind of basically help it? Like what do you find works for you when you are feeling anxious and stuff?
Training really helps. I think like releasing your endorphins and like getting through that period of like putting your body under stress to relieve stress, or walking, that really helps. I tried meditation, but no, I don't think I've done it right. So it hasn't really worked for me. Focusing on breathing also at one point, because they say to like, when you're having a panic attack to breathe, that was making me more anxious because I was focusing too much on the breath. And then, I felt like I couldn't breathe again.
Well, it's great that you were able to find something that does help you and does work for you. I guess with anxiety, it's going to be, I have very little experience with it, but it's going to be different for everybody in terms of what helps them and what works for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just finding out what works for you, because breathing techniques usually work for a lot of people. So it would make sense for it to work for everyone. But yeah, sometimes it's like different techniques work for other people.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've kind of found that has helped outside of training as well? Or is it mainly training?
I think walking and listening to podcast things and just taking your mind off what's worrying you tends to help. But then I'm also someone that I need to get done what I'm worrying about. So if it's not done, I'll just like go to bed, like worrying about it. And then like, yeah, it's the same cycle.
Oh, okay. So there's like specific things that cause you that feeling of anxiety.
Yeah. So like if there's something on my to-do list that I haven't done, or like is going to take a long time, or I haven't figured out how to do it yet, then I'm like I basically overthink. And I think that's part of the problem. You kind of have to like not train yourself to not overthink about the same thing.
Yeah. It is difficult to switch off from things aside from taking action on them.
Yeah.
Like when there's something that's on your to-do list or something that's bearing like a burden on you, I guess sometimes the only thing to actually relieve that stress is to just complete the task at hand, or tackle what's causing you that almost stress.
Yeah. Or like sometimes it might be going somewhere, or having to have a conversation with someone at work, or having to have a difficult conversation that you like kind of then like replay in your head before you've had them. They're like trying to do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some people often like mistake anxiety for nerves. Like, you know, like someone who's got very little experience with it, who doesn't actually know what anxiety feels like.
Yeah.
They may go, I feel anxiety, when it's almost just nervousness. And the two are very different things. Not that I don't know if I've experienced anxiety. Like, I guess I felt nervousness and I felt like apprehensiveness before of something big and stuff. But I guess that's not what is exactly what anxiety is. Like, so how would you describe it? Like how you're feeling?
Basically you feel crippled, and like you're stuck between wanting to do things, but you can't do them because your body physically won't let you. And like to the point where you might be saying no to going to certain social situations, or even like when I was at school, I remember having like a lot of anxiety that like I pretended to be sick on a couple of occasions. So I'd get out of doing like presentations and stuff like that, because I guess the thought of public speaking was like, just like I had panic attacks or like stress feelings.
Yeah. I mean, things that usually I guess when you're feeling that nervous, or I said nervous, but when you're feeling that anxious, and that much anxiety, like it's very difficult to do, take action on the thing that's making you feel that way. Is there anything that you do to help overcome it when you're in that situation where you can't, turn to training or going for a walk? What do you do to bring your feelings of anxiety down in that moment?
I think just do something that's going to distract you, because the more you start focusing it, the more you're going to like get into that mindset of just solely focusing on that one thing, and you need to kind of distance yourself from it to then be able to go back with a clearer head. So like even if it's watching some Netflix program or something, one of those shows that you don't actually need to watch and think and pay attention, it's just there for background.
Passive watching.
Yeah, that you can stick on and do something else, but you don't really need to pay attention for you to, when you actually start watching again, that you've not missed anything. Yeah,
I guess distraction is probably a really good way to go. And just a caveat, like none of this is medical advice for anyone who is suffering with anxiety and stuff. Like it's just what we're discussing in terms of what works for Kalina and and our opinions, I guess.
I think anxiety, like to just like differentiate anxiety from nerves. I think when anxiety starts affecting your daily life, that's how you know that that's the difference, because like when I was going through I think even after the next year, I had like not panic attacks, but the physical symptoms were quite bad. I was getting gas trapped in my back and I didn't know how to get it out. And I know my family have had history with anxiety, but I just didn't know how to get it out. And like just then panicking and not being able to breathe. And you just think every time that happens, that's the end, because you've like heard stories of people passing away because they'd had like trap gas somewhere and like in their chest or wherever, and they couldn't get it out. So that's what my mind tends to go to like the worst option.
Okay.
But yeah, like, or even like you're just trying, like even before bed, like that's the same thing. So you kind of have to like just not think about it.
That's quite a scary thought, like just that your mind goes to that point.
Yeah. Because you don't know how to get it out, and like where other people do, like what you can't call like emergency service every time that happens, because it's not really a thing that you would call them for. And you can take like the medical stuff, like, you know, they have stuff like, I don't know, Gaviscon or like the doctor prescribed stuff, but sometimes that doesn't help. And like maybe like with anxiety, I don't know, it works really weird. Like other people don't have the same symptoms that like someone like me would have. They might have the, you know, heavy breathing, shortness of breath more so than anything else.
So like aside from, you know, going through a journey and like finding training and finding methods that help with your anxiety, like what else has fitness done for your life, like in terms of the transformation, I hate using that word, but the transformation it's done for your life, because you have gone through a major process, and not just physical, but just generally. I know you've gone through amazing physical transformation, but Body+Beyond in the name is much more than just body. It's a lot more beyond that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could share whatever you want. So you could talk about your physical, but like what has it done for you?
So yeah, obviously the physical stuff is there, but I think the confidence since I first started has increased. And I think when you're going through the physical changes, the mental changes also happen. So like when I first started, like, you know, that I was very shy. I didn't speak to anyone, like very much like kind of keep myself to myself. I was probably more focused on like not trying to do something silly. That's why I didn't speak to anyone. But yeah, and then like now, like having made so many friends at Body+Beyond, or even like going to gyms on my own, which I didn't do before. And going alone and doing things alone rather than, okay, I need to go with people to do things. And like, yeah, so this weekend I was at IFS. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's the International Fitness Summit that I was thinking about going last year, but COVID, kind of prevented that. So yeah, I went on Saturday and there were a lot of like people who are like either into fitness, personal trainers, or just people who were just interested in fitness. And then they had loads of like fitness people there, like that were giving talks, there were panels, and like having that confidence to like have conversations with them, which is something that 5 years ago I wouldn't have gotten basically.
I know exactly what that feels like as well. It's a crazy thing, like to go to an event like that on your own, and not a lot of people can do it. Like I know many personal trainers, when I've asked, even Sadie, for example, she's a coach at Body+Beyond, and when I've said, oh, there's this thing coming up, you know, would you like to go? More for her, and even if I can't make it, she'll be like, yeah, I don't really want to go on my own. So if one of the other team or I'm going, then it's probably game on, but on her own, she'll always say no. Yeah. And I guess a lot of personal trainers or anyone who's into fitness and stuff like that can feel intimidated, because where your mind goes to, there's going to be a lot of people who are very good looking, very in shape. Do I belong to that community? Especially as an Asian person, like, you know, most of the time, I don't know how it was at IFS, but most people are quite like everyone, mostly Caucasian in the fitness industry. Yeah. I know now it's a lot more diversity, but back when I first started, like 10 years ago, going to fitness events and things like that, it was always tall male, not even females, tall male personal trainers who are very muscular and do not look like me or you. Yeah. In terms of the color of our skin and just generally like in terms of like athletic build and things like that? Not that we don't look athletic, I just mean
no, I know what you mean.
Cover model physiques, like ripped to bits, tall, big, huge, muscular bodies. Even the women, when they are there, most of them are like fitness models and things like that. So they have a very like one type of aesthetic. How did you feel going? Like, how did it feel when you were there?
I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous, and I think I replied to one of your stories like, oh my god, I'm like gonna have to have, or like just wanting to have a conversation with people. Like, you follow them on social media, and I've like probably like had a exchange of conversation with them on DMs, but like it's different to real life, and you don't know how they're going to be in real life. I think some of them are completely the same, like what you see on social media, like Darren Cartel, he's like the same person as you see on Instagram.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Life. People like Emma Story Gordon, exact same person as you see on social media. She's really nice. And it's kind of like weird to have conversations with them, like, and to like be able to have a conversation with them in person, because you kind of think like, well, they're like on another level than you, but they're
you say that, but like as in they're just human beings at the end of the day. Do you know what it is? What makes them different is that they have more followers.
Yeah.
And I think our mind goes to the fact that because someone has more followers, they're more, I don't know, I don't know what it is really, like they have a higher status in life than you.
Yeah.
And if you took that away, you probably wouldn't feel so intimidated to go and speak to someone. Like you, I don't know, if you saw me in person, like you probably wouldn't feel so intimidated to come and chat to me.
No.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the same thing when it comes to like, I don't know, James Smith or something like that. But I can totally understand why it might feel daunting, because I felt the same way when I first started meeting people who I followed online. But at fitness events, I was like, oh my God, there's this person or there's this person. And it's intimidating to go up to them, but when you do, you realize that they're just a normal person who is there sharing their knowledge and there to help as well.
Yeah, no, like I think it's what we kind of narrative that we create in our head that, you know, okay, I want to speak to this person, but I feel like because I don't know them in person already, that you can't do it. Like, whereas, but I already know you in person, so I wouldn't have that problem. Whereas like following someone on social media, not having met them in person, I guess now for like we've done it for the first time, so next time will be easier. But yeah, that first time is a bit daunting. And then like going there alone, there's loads of people. Most of the people that went to IFS were solo people, and like we all just met there and like made friends there. So that was the nice thing about it, that you kind of got to know other people, whether they were in the fitness industry or not. And
this IFS I've heard I've never been, but I've heard it's a very relaxed fitness event compared to other more structured educational fitness events, or like Body Power, for example, where it's all about, I guess, how you look and wearing like stringer vests and things like that.
Yeah, so the first like Saturday was all like because they had to cram it into one day, whereas like if it was in Lisbon, it would be over a couple of days, and people wouldn't have to choose what talks they were going to. So they had like an indoor stage, outdoor stage, and then you chose what panels you wanted to listen to, and then they had a rave after.
Sounds like a festival rather than a fitness event.
They had Mr. Motivator come and do his talk. He was actually really good. He was like talking about how he does like exercise stuff, but like how the NHS and care homes are referring people to him before surgery. Wow. And he's trying to get more people to refer into him and his team, I guess, so people can recover better after. So that was really interesting.
That's amazing. I never thought, I didn't actually know Mr. Motivator was still like doing the whole fitness thing.
Yeah, he is. He said he's turning 70 next year and he's going to be there in Lisbon.
Wow. That's incredible. He does not look 70 years old. I guess this is just goes to show how being fit and active can really impact the quality of your life going forward.
Yeah. And he was like, every day he does 70 press ups straight. He's like, I've not stopped that. Like, he just maintains his like fitness regime that he does. Like, I'll always do my squats and stuff. Like, I don't have any illnesses. I'm still able to move at this age. And that's what I want to do to help other people, I guess, like when they get to that stage.
I think a lot of people's arguments, like someone who's not into training, something they'll often bring up is like, you're still going to die anyway.
Yeah.
Just because you're not eating a burger all the time doesn't mean you're not going to die. Or, what if you still get cancer, for example? I know these are extreme things that people do say them, especially in the Asian community.
I was just going to say the same thing. I was like, it's always in the Asian community. And I've like heard it so much recently as well. It's like, well, that's not a reason to kind of like, just go the complete opposite. Like, you want to try to prolong your life.
I remember like when I first started like working out and exercising and trying to be healthy, and I didn't work in the fitness industry. I was at Argos, and the first thing someone told me when I told them that I'm trying to get active is, oh, I knew this bodybuilder who was in great shape, incredible, and died of a heart attack still. And I was like, yeah. And just because one person has passed away young because they were fit and healthy doesn't mean everyone will. And it's not about not dying or living very, very, very long life. It's more about the quality of your life. So if you think about like you're a perfect example of this. So how old were you when you first started training with us? If you don't mind saying on that podcast.
I was like, I was trying to do the math in my head. What is it? 22?
Yeah, I remember at 21, but yeah, you would know more than your age before. Yeah, so let's say it was 22. Yeah. So 22-year-old, do you mind giving some stats about your fitness level and your size, your weight, whatever? You might not want to share your weight, but
that's fine. I was basically a size 22 to 24, about 16 stone before I started with you guys. Body fat percentage probably like, I don't know what that was, but the BMI was like way above 30, I think. I think I tried it on the Wii. Like, it gave you at some point, like, I know that it had like a little thing, but it was like 30 something. But yeah, like basically couldn't walk from like, let's say my house to the end of the street without being out of breath. Unable to like anything basically.
So in your words, would you say you were someone who was living a healthy and quality life?
No.
Okay. So the reason why I'm saying that, and before anyone thinks like I'm being really mean, bringing up things like, that might hurt Kalina, is more to paint a picture of where Kalina was. So that's at the age of 22.
Yeah.
If you fast forward to 6 years on, 28 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're 28 now, and how do you think you would be if you carried on that same path? Like, where would you feel right? How would you feel right now?
Pretty much still the same, or probably worse. Like, I would have got to the stage where I got heavier. Because you can't, like, although at the time people even now said, oh, but you didn't used to eat a lot then. I was like, I was secret eating. 2, like, all the things that I ate were very calorie dense. Like, they were very like bread, cake, all the things that are not going to be healthy. Like, there was very little fruit and veg. But I think like a lot of the problems that I had, like maybe like, and I think now because the anxiety was worse, probably because of the increased weight, like all the symptoms that I was getting back then. So yeah, I think that would have all been there. I might still be having panic attacks if, that kind of led on. So
it doesn't sound like you're describing a very good quality of life. So let's say, I'm not even going to say it, but let's say like at a certain age, hopefully it's not, but if it was like at a younger age, something happened and you passed away out of your control, at least the last 6 years or however long it's going to be are going to be a much better quality of life. And this is the point that I guess people who get into health and fitness and try to prioritize their fitness are talking about when they say it's making my life better.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily to live a very, very long life. It's more to live a really good quality of life and extend your life as much as possible. So it's not like at the back end, I'm going to have 5 more extra years. It's the last 20 years of your life. You don't live life on your knees with lots of health problems and struggling and not wanting to be here almost, but thriving both mentally and physically. Yeah. I think people forget about that bit. Well, they don't actually. I'm sure people aren't daft. Like they do, but they push it to the back of their head almost and say silly things like, well, you still might get cancer even if you live a fit and healthy life.
Yeah. And they were like, you only live once, so like you shouldn't be, what's the phrase? Like you eat to live, or like or do you live to eat? And that people always choose like one or the other. Yeah,
but you can have it both ways. I think people people have this big misconception about health and what healthy food is. And even you said it like just, you said breads and cakes, and I said I just wasn't eating healthily. But then you quickly kind of changed it. You said I wasn't having like fruits and veg and that sort of thing. So it's about a balance, and it doesn't mean like, you can just eat cake every day and, be and then eat fruits and be healthy. It's more about a balance of like going to that whole calorie thing, but balancing food with your energy levels and, how much calories you're burning and being in a equilibrium, like yin and yang almost, like eating things like takeaways and stuff, but also eating vegetables and fruits. And that's more what health is, and that's how anyone who's actually knows what they're doing is going to promote health, not just get you to live this really strict and restricted lifestyle. That's not what fitness is about. That's not what health is about.
No. And I actually had like from the International Fitness Summit, I think people were just like, are you allowed to drink? That's not fitness, is it? And we're like, I think everyone there was like, well, fitness isn't just, like everyone's just going to have like protein shakes and like protein bars for life. And then like even after, Rahil bought me Domino's pizza, which I said no to because I was supposed to get on the train, but that didn't happen. But like some days it will be that, and some days it will be like having more nutrient dense foods, and like you basically have both in balance. Like it's not gonna be one or the other.
Yeah, and like that whole like living to eat or eating to live, like it's not about saying yes to everything or no to everything. It's about picking when you say yes and no.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may say no to Domino's because earlier in the day you had like cakes and drinks and lots of food. And then other days you haven't eaten that much, or you've eaten really well, and you feel like, oh, okay, like I want to. And some days you may eat junk the whole day. And just go back on it the next day. It's not like there's no on and off switch. It can be, you can like turn things up and down where you want them to. Same thing with like being physically active. People think, I can't train 6 days a week for the rest of my life, but you don't have to be fit and healthy. Some days when you have more time, you can do 6 days a week, really intense workouts. And sometimes you can do twice a week, and they could be really like walks, and that could be your fitness. Like, it's just about balancing, into your life and your lifestyle, and just maintaining some level of activity and good physical health over a long period of time.
Yeah, I think people forget that the goal is lifelong, and like, you might have shorter goals, like where you do want to lose a bit of weight, or you do want to build muscle for a shorter period. But then, what is that you're going to be doing this for life? It's not like a end point where you just like, I'm going to stop being active on a daily basis, or I'm going to stop this like diet where I don't have to eat as much fruit and veg on a daily basis.
So I know what your answer is probably going to be to this, but I'm going to ask you the question because someone who's listening to this probably thinking, or doesn't know your journey and stuff, is probably thinking, what, you were a size 22 to 24 and 16 stone, and now you're not, like, and do you mind sharing where you are now in terms of like your body image and stuff and how you feel about it?
I don't know what the conversion is because I can't do maths, but so I'm a size 8 to 10 now, and in kilos I'm at like 59. I don't know what that is in stone.
Anyway, it's just an incredible change, And like, there's a ridiculous like kind of body transformation. And when you see the pictures, like I will put some show notes to Kalina's like kind of page and stuff, and you can go and browse and have a little sneaky peek at her transformation journey and where she's gone to where she is now is absolutely incredible. So a lot of people's question, well, first thing will be, how did you do it? So in your words, how did you do it?
So I joined Body+Beyond, and then I started actually training, being consistent with it, even when I didn't want to, working out what my energy needs were at the time. And this can be really funny. I think you might already know this. So you know how we always talk about 10,000 steps a day? So for a good year, I thought we were only supposed to do 10,000 steps on the training days.
Oh, okay.
And then I spoke to Susan after, and she was like, no, he means every day. I was like, oh. And then I was like, yeah, I have not been doing that. So once like that clicked in, it didn't really end up being 10,000 every day, but what you can do at the time. And I guess being consistent with that. And then like, as the weight comes off, like rework what your energy requirements are, because you can't stay on the same floor as you were before. But yeah, just being consistent really.
Yeah, and that's the magic word that I was thinking you were going to say, is being consistent. And like with all the things you've done, the biggest thing that stands out to me is your consistency. So even though like, you know, you were having panic attacks and you couldn't turn up, you turned up to when you could. So whether it was 2 days a week, 1 day a week, 3 days a week, you still came back. Even after a holiday that sounded like it wasn't the best holiday because you were having panic attacks in front of people that you probably didn't want to.
No.
But you still came back afterwards to do something. You rocked up. And that's one thing I noticed with you over time is how consistent you are. Even when it's not perfect, you keep trying. And I think to anyone listening who's thinking like, oh, you know, like I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried to lose weight and I haven't been successful. Just keep trying and learn from your mistakes. Like if something hasn't worked, the best thing you can do is learn from what hasn't worked. Don't do the same thing again. Try something different, but keep trying, because eventually you will get to success. It's only when you give up and you stop trying that you fail.
Yeah. And I think also along the way, especially with food, like having a couple of, I think people just think that when you're going to go into any kind of diet that you can't eat foods that you actually like. So, and a lot of the time people are like, okay, I'm going to eat clean in the week and then I can just eat whatever I want. And that doesn't really work either, but that you can include foods that you actually like in the week. So like whether that's one chocolate bar or one tub of ice cream in my case, having those couple of non-negotiables, like I will not give up ice cream for anything. So I will just include it in what I want to eat for whatever day.
Yeah. I mean, that's the magic of like being consistent. Like you can only be consistent for that long, especially like 6 years, is if you enjoy the process. Yeah. And the only way to enjoy the process is to make it balanced enough in your favor that you can, you know, do things that you enjoy, whether it's the form of exercise. You know, you're not going to keep coming back to something like what we do if you didn't enjoy weight training and, you know, doing the type of training that we did.
Yeah.
For some people, that sounds like hell, and they are better off suited to going for a walk 4 days a week, or I don't know, whatever type of diet they follow in terms of nutrition, the food that you include. But it's about doing things that balance for you.
Yeah.
And there's something I listened to this morning, and it was actually really good in terms of the guy was talking about the difference between defeat and losses. And he was saying defeat is when you completely give up and you stop, whereas a loss is something that you can learn from. And it's the same thing on a fitness journey. I'm sure you experience lots of losses, but no defeats because you didn't stop. You know, and is there anything that you find that was a big obstacle for you that almost made you quit, but you carried on going?
I know we keep talking about anxiety, but I've had like, I think there was like maybe a week or two where out of the blue that I just like couldn't walk basically, or like I was just, I don't know what happened to my body. So yeah, I thought it was, okay, I must be deficient with something. blood test came back, everything was normal. So I had to stop training that week. Or like if you become ill, like not training for certain periods and but I think people think that, okay, because I can't train for like 5 days, or even when you go on holiday, you might not always have access to a gym. That because you can't train for that period of time, that, okay, everything's going to go out the window. But it's not, because you can still go for a walk. You can still do other things on holiday you're not doing weight training, but you're still doing something, and you're doing something that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be like hard and fast. Yeah, I have to go to the gym.
Yeah, I think people need to, with that sort of thing, it's a case of like not defining perfection. So we have a saying at Body+Beyond, like progress over perfection. And we say that because if you focus on progress, you can get something done as opposed to trying to be perfect. Like ideally, over the summer holidays, it's been very difficult for me to get out of the house to go to the gym.
Yeah.
With 2 young kids and things like that. But I've tried to do what I could at home, or going for a bike ride, or going for a walk, just being active with the family, that sort of thing. And it's not perfect, but it's what allowed me to keep making some sort of progress rather than going backwards. And along your journey, especially when you have a long journey, you don't have a transformation like a size 22 to a size 8 overnight. It's going to take you a good few years to do that. Just like your journey did, that even then, like that, we don't want to, shorten it to 12 weeks. It was like 3 years.
Yeah.
So to get to that point, you're going to have to be consistent, and you're going to have to focus on progress, not getting everything right and nailing nutrition all of the time. I'm sure you had major blowouts, and I'm sure your progress didn't go down. I know for a fact it didn't go down, because there was times where we did, back in the day, we used to take measurements and things like that. Like I used to take them myself, and I remember waist measurement would go up.
Yeah.
And then it would come down later, and then it might go up again, and it would come down. But overall, you're making progress in the right direction. Rather than if you looked at it like a weekly or 4 weekly thing, it might look like you're going up and down. But if you looked at it over a 6-month period, eventually it was still moving in the right direction, and it's not being deterred by that. It's still coming back, still, doing all those things.
Yeah, I think, there was loads of times where like you and Leon took my measurements, and I was like very frustrated. I'm sure Leon told you about that. So, but like you keep doing it, you keep taking the measurements even when you don't want to. And I think actually, I know COVID like kind of stopped all of that, but that was when like they would get done regardless every month. Obviously I still do them now, but like sometimes you're like, oh yeah, maybe I'll just delay it for an extra week.
Yeah, it's like external accountability, isn't it? Like we had back in the day, we used to do those like measurement days, so everyone would get like not like as a Weight Watchers thing, and you all have to step on the scale. It wasn't like it was privately done. No one would know what was going on in terms of your own progress. That was for you. But we had like a day we would always take people's, or a week we would always ask our team to update the progress. And now we just don't do it for you. We still ask you, but to do it. But if your goal is like kind of body focus, we've taken a big different direction from where we used to help people, I guess. But we're coming to the end of our conversation. Is there anything that is on your chest right now that you want to get off? Anyone listening who you feel may be where you once were and ideally wants to get to where you are now, any last piece of advice that you'd like to leave with them?
I think if you are thinking about starting to get into fitness, or like whatever your goals are, just start. Like the longer you trying to overthink or say this is not the right time, like there is never going to be a right time. Like my case, an example, it wasn't the right time, but you just start and you keep going. I think also who you surround yourself with is very important. The people that you have that are going to support you are very important. Sometimes that may be your family and friends. Sometimes it may not be, but having a group of people that are going to cheer you on whilst you are taking on your journey is what's going to help you keep going as well. So like all the people at Body+Beyond, we all like cheer each other on. I have friends and family that are doing the same. And I think where you get your advice from is also very important. Someone like a auntie who's telling you to eat, like they say, like might make some sort of Indian snack and then say, there's no oil in here, you can still eat it, it's healthy, may not be the best person to like give you nutrition advice. So just be careful where you take the advice from. But I think reaching out to other people where you don't know is probably your best bet, and having accountability from someone else when you know that you might kind of deter yourself from doing things on certain days.
Brilliant. That was amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. And we'll have to have you back on one day again. But yeah, thank you so much. Can you just let people know where they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kalina Fitness, and the same on Facebook as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Kalina.
Thanks, Vin.
Catch you on the next episode, guys.